Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the session on lecture series on psychological research presented by CEC. I'm Dr. Shefali Mishra, Associate Professor, Department of Psychology, Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. Today we have with us Ms. Manisha Sharma, the sign language interpreter, who will explain the lecture being presented by me. The today's lecture will be on a continuation on the lecture series on psychological research, and I'm going to present before you some methods, ethics, and sampling techniques used in psychological research. Scholars have traditionally regarded quantitative and qualitative research approaches as opposing and have emphasized the perceived weaknesses of each approach. However, researchers now emphasize the unique strengths of these two research approaches and argue that they can be complementary in addressing complex research problems. The present lecture attempts to analyze the credibility of mixed method approach as an approach that is particularly suitable for psychology. Additionally, it is an approach that this lecture seeks to lay out and for focus on the basic assumptions and challenges involved in conducting mixed method research. The lecture is aimed to examine the status of mixed methods as a third paradigm in psychology, in addition to the traditional quantitative and qualitative frameworks of research. Let us now examine what is mixed method research. Many researchers from both the quantitative and qualitative camps now agree that the two approaches can and should be combined. And there are various reasons for this. Number one, both the methods share the common goal of understanding social world, even though the approaches are different. For example, quantitative framework uses experimentation and survey, whereas qualitative uses narrative and ethnography. If the same phenomenon or construct is studied combining the two, limitation of one teaching can be overcome by another. So we see that whatever they study, the goal is one, to highlight or to examine the social world and human behavior as well as cognitive processes. Mixed method design incorporates techniques from both qualitative and quantitative methods to answer research questions. These approaches can be employed to, number one, enhance or augment data, to establish a means of corroborating findings, or number two, to carry out a pilot study in order to provide insights for a larger scale project with a quantitative focus. One approach to combining quantitative and qualitative research is to use qualitative research for hypothesis generation and quantitative research for hypothesis testing. Again, while a qualitative study might suggest that families who experience an unexpected suicide have more difficulty resolving the question of why this happened, a well-designed quantitative study could test a hypothesis by measuring these specific variables for a large sample and get the reason for why this happened. Why should we use mixed methods? Now let us see, what is the rationale behind using mixed method. As already we have noted that the strength of each approach can complement each other. So this is one of the important reasons why one should use mixed method approaches in psychology. Also, because social phenomena are so complex, different kinds of methods are needed to best understand these complexities. By addressing confirmatory and exploratory questions simultaneously, the research can create and confirm theory in the same study. So, if we adopt both quantitative and qualitative approach, we are better equipped to address the research question at hand. It can provide explanations for seemingly contradictory results that emerge from using different methods. All data collection methods we have known have certain drawbacks. However, when we use various approaches, it may reduce the drawbacks of the methods of data collection. Mixed method approaches are frequently utilized in health psychology, medically related research, and market research. In these fields, funders often prioritize the inclusion of numerical data, objectivity, and generalizability. However, researchers here also aim to complement these aspects by providing detailed descriptions of individual experiences from the perspective of patients, clients, practitioners, or consumers. The implementation of mixed method approaches has led to several advancements in research methodologies. Now we will examine another concept which seems very close to what we call mixed method approach but is slightly different from it. This is known as triangulation. The concept of employing multiple methods to get further insight into a phenomena has traditionally been used to verify or support findings. Researchers employ multiple methods, typically combining qualitative and quantitative approaches to triangulate the results of their measurement and observations. Triangulation is one such approach to combining quantitative and qualitative research. Research triangulation, as defined by Noble and Heal, is a method used to enhance the credibility and validity of research. The idea is to use both quantitative and qualitative methods simultaneously to study the same general question and to compare the results. If the results of the quantitative and qualitative methods converge on the same general conclusion, they reinforce and enrich each other. And suppose the results diverge, then this suggests an interesting new question: why do the results diverge and how can they be reconciled? Triangulation, thus, is a technique that utilizes a combination of several methodologies to effectively validate research findings. However, triangulation and mixed approaches are distinct from each other. Mixed method research involves integrating both quantitative and qualitative ways to address research inquiries, whereas triangulation refers to the researcher's utilization of different approaches to extract necessary information and critically analyze findings. Validity is an important aspect of research, and validity in research refers to the extent to which a specific method accurately evaluates something and how closely the findings align with the real values or concepts being studied. It assesses the trustworthiness of findings from particular research. Researchers now employ triangulation in order to attain validity and credibility in their research. The Social Science Research Laboratories 2018 identifies 6 methods that researchers can use to attain this goal. The first method is methodological triangulation, which uses more than one research approaches in a study. It is also referred to as mixed method research. The second type of triangulation used by researchers is data triangulation, which makes use of several data sources in a study together. Third is investigator triangulation. This uses different researchers, interviewers, investigators, data analysts, or observers in a study. We also have theoretical triangulation, which makes use of several theories in analyzing a phenomenon. Similarly, fifth one is environmental triangulation, which makes use of a variety of settings to validate research findings. And finally, we have multiple triangulation, which makes use of 2 or more of the triangulation types mentioned above. So, there are certain advantages of triangulation. Number one, that is the first advantage of triangulation, is that its ability to validate research findings. Researchers employ a variety of methods, for instance, quantitative and qualitative methods, and is fortunate to have findings from all methods pointing in a particular direction. This finding validates the accuracy of the work done. The second advantage of triangulation is that it utilizes multiple sources or procedures in a study, which may reduce the limitation of one method through the strengths of another, a point that we have emphasized earlier too. When researchers use both quantitative and qualitative methods simultaneously in a study, which is known as mixed methods, they can validate findings from qualitative data, examine relationships, and statistically represent findings. The fourth advantage is that triangulation offers additional insights that aid researchers in explaining phenomena. Theoretical triangulation particularly involves the use of multiple theories to explain research findings. Finally, triangulation helps to improve the credibility of the study. Making use of multiple data sources reduces research biases in sampling, procedural bias as well as researchers' biases, thus increasing the overall validity and credibility of the research. Presently, research is integrating the two approaches, which is a constructive development as it establishes a necessary equilibrium between qualitative and quantitative research methodologies. This is examined by the recent researchers. For a long time, the latter has been considered to be of higher quality, that is, quantitative was considered to be superior to the qualitative approach, and because of its excellent reliability and capacity of generalization. Although this fact is undeniable, it should not be used to diminish the worth of the other, as both quantitative and qualitative have their own merits and drawbacks that need to be carefully considered based on the specific aim of the study. When research is conducted with rigor, both the methods employed and the researcher utilizing them should be equally valued. Now we will examine some of the ethical considerations in psychological research. Ethics are very important for any form of research, and the present section of the lecture would explore the complex nature of ethical standards in psychological research. This exploration aims to highlight the crucial role of ethical considerations in shaping the methodology, implementation, and interpretation of psychological research. This does so by examining historical precedents, contemporary guidelines, and emerging challenges. Psychological research, which has significant consequences for comprehending human behavior and mental processes, is a discipline that has the task of performing studies that contribute to the progress of knowledge. Ethical standards are essential for maintaining the integrity and credibility of the research enterprise. These standards ensure the protection of the rights, well-being, and dignity of research participants. This section aims to examine the ethical dimensions of psychological research and recognize the significant influence of ethical considerations on the research landscape. The ethical standards in psychological research have their roots in historical cases of research misconduct and ethical lapses that cause significant harm to the participants. Researchers, practitioners, and stakeholders are required to navigate and integrate ethical environment where the need for continuous reflection and adjustment of ethical standard is driven by factors such as cultural sensitivity, diversity, and technological advancement. This part of the lecture aims to promote a deeper understanding of the ethical principles that guide the pursuit of knowledge and practices in psychological research. Let us examine the history to see what was the need for having ethical guidelines in psychological research. The 20th century observed groundbreaking psychological research that, while making substantial contribution to the understanding of human behavior, generated ethical concerns that stay relevant even today. The first such study was conducted by Milgram, and that was known as Milgram's obedience studies, conducted in the early 1960s. where the volunteers were subjected to emotional distress by leading them to believe that they were administering harmful electric shocks to others. Similarly, in another study, that is the Stanford Prison Study conducted by Zimbardo in 1971, individuals took on the roles of prisoners and guards and had unexpected emotional and psychological effects. These research stimulated ethical contemplation within the profession and emphasized the necessity for strict guidelines to safeguard participants from harm. In response to these ethical violations, professional organizations in psychology, such as American Psychological Association, that is APA, created official ethical standards. The American Psychological Association issued its very first ethical code in 1953 and has since made several revisions to reflect the ever evolving environment of ethical concerns. Advancement in technology have expanded ethical considerations beyond typical experimental settings. So today, the internet and digital data collection have raised concerns about privacy, permission, and responsible technology usage in research. The field of psychology has ethical challenges in online studies, big data analytics, and the potential misuse of AI in research. Some of the ethical issues and coping strategies faced by researchers in psychological research are as follows. The first issue of privacy and confidentiality. The researcher must adhere to ethical guidelines by maintaining the privacy of research participants and refraining from disclosing their personal information. In psychological research, it is essential for the researcher to effectively communicate the purpose and impact of their study to the research participants while also maintaining strict confidentiality regarding the findings of the study. Second important ethical concern relates to informed consent and voluntary participation. In research, participants are frequently exposed to several external distractions. To prevent such disruptions, it is crucial to guarantee that the research participants provide informed consent and willingly engage in the research. Prior to conducting experiments and gathering data, the researcher must provide the essential instructions to the research participants, inform them about the potential risks and advantages of the experiment, obtain their written consent, and ensure that the research participants are capable of participating in the experiment willingly. The third ethical question in psychological research it relates to the dilemma that psychology researchers may encounter. For example, in some of the experiment and instances, there may be instances of mistreatment, deception, and restriction of freedom of those participating in the study. Researchers have a responsibility to safeguard their research participants from exploitation and damage. They must also adhere to the principles of honesty and trustworthiness in their research while upholding the ethical standards of scientific inquiry. To conduct experiments involving ethical issues, researchers must follow the protocols of research ethics review, employ advocates to uphold the rights and interests of the research participants, and guarantee that the studies are in accordance with the law. Thank you.